Hi, First Church family. A few days ago, Pastor Andrew reminded me that he was waiting on another video from me to give kind of a devotional today. So I went to bed the other night thinking about that, and kind of as I laid in bed that night going to sleep, I was praying, saying, "Well, God, I don't have anything, and I'm just hoping in the morning that you give me something." Well, that night I had a dream again, and some of you might remember that are part of our church family that one of the last times I preached, I had a dream about a week before I preached, and I felt very led, very much nudged to share that. And I was reluctant because the dream was a little symbolic. If you remember, it had an elephant in it and some different things. And but as I moved forward with that and prayed about it, God seemed to say to me, "This is what I want you to preach, and this is why I gave you this dream." So the other night when I went to bed and was praying about it, and saying to God, "Well, in the morning, I hope I have something. I hope you give me something to say." That night I had a dream again, and I woke up at 3 a.m. And I don't know if any of you ever wake up at 3 a.m., but there seems to be this thing with the 3 a.m. hour that is special, especially if you're a Christian. I seem to hear a lot from God during that hour. And I'd had a dream, and the scripture that comes to mind is Acts 2:17, and it's the Apostle Paul quoting the book of Joel, the prophet Joel in the Old Testament. Joel 2:28 says the same thing. It's a quote that Paul uses in the book of Acts in chapter 2, verse 17. And I have my Bible here. It says, and this is the New Living Translation of the Bible, "In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit upon all people. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see vision, and your old men will dream dreams." And I've had dreams for a long time, all my life, and my wife can attest to them. Sometimes I kick and flail, is that the word, in my dream, and she sometimes takes the brunt of it and wakes me up saying, "Honey, you're dreaming and you're kicking me." Not doing that on purpose, but in this dream that I had the other night, that scripture came to me. It seems like God speaks to me often in a dream, and scripture does say that can happen. It's maybe sometime I'll do a devotional or a sermon on that, how so many people in the Bible, God spoke to them in a dream. And but as he spoke to me in this dream, I remember I was running. Now, as you can tell from Pastor Tim's body, I'm not a runner. I do some walking, but I can't remember the last time I actually ran. And in the dream, though, I was running, and it was down a city street. We live in the city, and it seemed like the city of New Bedford. I was running down this street, and in our city, we have a whole bunch of 3-story tenements. There are houses that people live on each floor, so there could be 3 families in one home, and each occupies one of those stories, one of those floors. And as I was running down the street, I was so impressed with the good timing that I was making. I was running well and making good time. But I remember as I looked to my left in the dream, up on the 3rd floor in the roof of one of those tenements, I saw some flames coming out of a window. It was on fire. And as I glanced over, now I'm running, and I keep running in my dream, but as I glance over, I see on the bottom floor of the tenement this family watching TV and eating dinner, while the roof, the 3rd story of that tenement, is on fire. And I remember thinking to myself, I should stop and warn those people on the 1st floor. But I'm making such good timing, I didn't want to stop. I put myself first, and I kept running. And when I got home, I was so impressed with my good time. I was telling my wife what great timing I made. I made it home for supper, and went inside the house, and one of the first things I did was put on the news, the local news, because I wanted to see if they were covering the story of that fire, as I was telling my wife about it. And I also put on the scanner. I love a police scanner. Sometimes I'll listen to what's happening in the neighborhood, especially if we hear sirens. So I put on the scanner. I put on the news to see if I could catch the story. And it was suddenly then. I don't know what happened next. I don't know the rest of the story. But I woke up. And when I woke up, I sat on the side of the bed, and I was even kind of huffing and puffing, almost like I was exhausted from the run in the dream. And I remember getting up, and the first thing I thought of, I don't know about you, but if you ever have a dream like that, the first thing I thought of, I hope the house isn't on fire. So I went around checking each room. I went downstairs. I checked around. There was no smoke detectors going off, no smell of smoke, no flames. So I came back up, and I sat on the edge of the bed again, and I asked God. And this doesn't always happen, because sometimes I think we just dream and they don't necessarily happen for a reason that it's God speaking to us. But as I sat on the edge of the bed, I said, God, are you trying to say something to me with this dream tonight? And again, it was 3 a.m. And just as clear as day, I made some notes here that God said to me, this I wrote at 3 a.m. I grabbed a pen. I think that's the other thing I want to say to you today is when God speaks to you, don't put it off. If you're like me, we forget things. And whether you use your computer or your phone, some of you are really good with that, or the old-fashioned pen and paper. That's what I went for the other night at 3 a.m. I grabbed my pen, I grabbed paper. I was trying to write in the dark, so I didn't wake up Lou. But I wrote it down immediately because I felt like God had said something to me. And I'll share that with you. God said to me, and this is what I wrote down, the symbolism of the dream was in the Bible. And it's the story of the Good Samaritan. And I don't know if you're aware of that story. It's I know it's in several of the Gospels, but in Luke 10:25 through 37. Actually, let me read from 30. Verse 30, Jesus told him a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by some bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, a minister, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. I thought to myself, wow, was that me in the dream? A temple assistant in verse 32 walked over and looked at him lying there too, but he also passed him by, a helper in the church. Then in verse 33, a despised Samaritan came along. And if you know anything of the story, they were enemies. When he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine, bandaged him. Then he put him on his donkey and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, which of these, Jesus asked, would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? Well, in this story, of course, this person says Jesus, the one who showed mercy. Jesus then said, yes, now go and do the same. And in the dream that I had as I sat there at 3 a.m., and again, I don't know how long the dream lasted, but when I was awake, this was just a matter of minutes, that God spoke to me about COVID-19 and this virus that's going around, and especially the stay-at-home order, or what they're telling us to try to avoid going out and being in public, and keep to yourself, stay at home, take care of you and your family, protect yourself. And I get all that. I think that's important. I think we have to be very careful. Your pastors have been trying to be careful. Our church has not been meeting for that reason. We're trying to do much of what we do online and through phone calls and computer. But I thought to myself, we have to be so careful as the Christian community, because as we're secluding ourselves at home and focusing on ourselves, and having a lot of alone time, we have to be careful to remember that we're still the church. And how important it is, I think, if you use your alone time or your time at home to find ways, just like we as pastors are, to do this video, to get the word out there still. You have a phone, call people. Call and check on people. So many of us are so busy all the time, and this is a good time that maybe you have time on your hands that you're wondering, what can I do? Be in touch with us as pastors. Maybe we can help you with some inventive ways. But again, I just kept thinking in this dream, when I was running that street, I was so impressed with the good time I was making, and I was focused on me and trying to get home and trying to get to supper and impress the wife, and just had good timing. While at the same time, there was a house on fire with a family sitting in it that didn't know it was on fire. And I could have done something. I could have said something, but I was too focused on me. And that's what God was saying to me with this stay-at-home thing that we're going through and the COVID-19. Don't get so focused on yourself. Yes, take care of you, take care of your family, but can you still find ways to outreach and to touch people? The story of the man dying on the side of the road and the Good Samaritan coming along is still happening today. And I want to be the person that tries to help people if I can. And during these days especially, we have to be innovative with that and figure out new creative ways. So God bless you. I hope this speaks to you today. And again, I'm praying for you. You pray for me. And together, let's go to the Lord and see if there's ways that we can help people. God bless you. Thank you for your time today.